name's Chris Baker with Baker DMM, and this is our Video Digest newsletter. Topic of today's newsletter is going to be, what is the Adult Protective Services? And to some of you out there, you might know it as APS. And before I jump into our discussion, I want to read you a quote. Quote states, "Government's first duty is to protect the people, not run their lives." And that was said by Ronald Reagan, past president of the United States. And I thought it was a great quote that, particularly in just a few moments when I talk about some of the examples of different people that our company and myself have helped in our community, it really ties into that quote. And before we jump into some examples, I want to read you a little bit more about the program if you're not familiar with it. So in the United States, Adult Protective Services are social services provided to abused, neglected, or exploited older adults and adults with significant disabilities. The program is typically administered by the state or local agencies. I know in the state of Georgia in the United States, it's per county. And pretty much every state in our country, in the United States, they help not only people that are aging, typically 60 and older, but they also help people that are 18 and older with disabilities. And based on the information I have, I think Ohio is the only state where the APS only focuses on people 60 and older. And there's all types of different disabilities. It could be due to aging, developmental disabilities, physical disabilities, or mental illness or cognitive impairments. Different types of abuse include physical, emotional, verbal, sexual, and financial. Today we're going to focus more on financial. And it's a government-run program, and I mean it's extremely valuable. And unfortunately, based on our company's experiences, my experiences, not enough people know about these programs. I mean, typically last year, and particularly this year, when we've been in community engaging with people, I would say at least usually half the time when we're presenting, half the audience doesn't know what that means or what the group is. And this summer, past summer, I was fortunate enough to present with the local APS at a Georgia Gerontology conference. It was their annual conference, and a member from the APS and I presented on financial fraud and elder abuse. And it was a really great conference and a great experience. And it was nice to combine a government entity with a more traditional for-profit business, because a lot of times, unfortunately, in the world that we live in, and particularly in the United States, different entities and various professionals tend to stay in their silos. Like government stays in government's area, medical stays in medical, financial stays in financial, nonprofit stays in nonprofit. You don't really get everybody collectively working together as a whole, which is probably a topic for a whole other video. But it was really nice to combine and talk about this topic with the APS this summer. And in our experiences in working with clients, we've had a number of different cases where we've had to either call and report to the APS on behalf of a client, or maybe by the time we got involved, their APS was already involved, and then we in one way or another started acting as a liaison between the APS and one of our clients. And a couple of experiences in particular. Last summer, we had a client, a woman, who we had started working with, and we met with her in 2015, and when we initially met with her, she had been diagnosed with Parkinson's. Her husband had passed away recently at that time, and she wasn't quite ready to work with us yet. But then as another year went by, we stayed in touch, and then finally she said, "Hey, look, I never managed the finances. My husband did it. He passed away. I'm battling my illness now, and I just need help. I can't do it on my own." So we started working with that woman in 2016, and when we started working together, she said, "Look, I'm worried about my youngest daughter taking advantage of me." And and I said, "Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on things, and if something comes up, while we're monitoring your accounts, we'll address it." Well, everything looked really good the first few months, but then this same woman ended up having a stroke, unfortunately, and she went to the hospital. Well, when she went to the hospital, all of a sudden we started seeing charges on her credit card and her debit card, and she's in the hospital, and so we're wondering, well, how is that happening if she's not doing it? Well, after reviewing some of the transactions, she felt very confident and pretty much knew it was her daughter, or youngest daughter. And so at that point, I said, well, we need to report this. I mean, that's fraud, that's abuse, that's exploitation, and that's not right. And I told this woman, I said, and I have to report it because per Georgia law, we're mandated reporters. And she really didn't want to. She was her daughter and she felt really bad, but I told her, I said, look, we're gonna do it for you. We can be the bad guy. So just blame us because I have to do this. And she kind of reluctantly said, okay, fine, you gotta do it. Well, we called APS, we made a report, we explained to them what happened. They take notes, they make a case, and then they actually went and visited this woman, our client, in the hospital, reviewed all the information with her. They confirmed with her that this is in fact what happened or what she thought happened. She did confirm it. Well, the APS then went back to their office, and again, as I mentioned, it's in the state of Georgia, it's by county. They contacted where the daughter lives in a different part of Georgia, the county where she lived, and that office actually went to the daughter's home and approached the daughter, contacted the daughter and said, hey, we have this report, we know what you're up to, you better cut it out, or you're gonna get in trouble, you're gonna go to jail, bad things are gonna happen. Well, we circled back to our client a few weeks later and checked in with her and just said, how are things going? And we had a conversation with her and we just said, hey, what happened, with your daughter? And she kind of, had a little grin and said, yeah, they got to her, they contacted her and she's scared now. And so it was really powerful that they were able to contact the daughter and really, tell her like, hey, we know what you're up to, better cut it out. And, and it's a good thing to tell everyone that the APS doesn't have the authority to arrest people. They're not going to go and they don't have any authoritative power to take anyone into custody. That's not their role. They investigate, and then depending on their investigation on where it goes, then if there's fraud, there's abuse, it's in all different facts in the story are there, and it depending on the dollar amount and what's going on and the types of abuse. They then refer that case to the police or the FBI or the GBI or whatever jurisdiction they're going to contact to handle the case. They're going to hand it over to the proper authorities for the authorities then to investigate and do their own research and then, if needed, take someone into custody. So the APS, they're like an advocate, social services watchdog, but they do not have the authority to arrest people, so to speak. But nonetheless, very powerful, great group. And unfortunately, they're very overworked. They've got a huge caseload. They've just got tons of different cases, particularly in our community, just not enough people to handle all the cases that they have. Another case where we've worked with the APS is a particularly challenging case. And it's just recently been happening the last few months, where we were introduced to a woman in our community, and she's had a rough year, both with her physical health, her mental health, and we were provided to her or suggested to her as a resource to help her with her financial resources and really just to try to help her stay organized, understand her money position, where her money's going, and just try to help her monitor her accounts and help her pay her bills and really just try to protect what she has. Because really, she's in her mid-60s and she's got a disability and she does have a nest egg, but that nest egg really just, with all of her medical issues, it's not a huge amount of money and she really needs to protect it. So that's why we've been introduced to her. And through that, we've really gotten to know her and a lot of the different challenges she's been facing. Like most recently, she had to move out of her home. She was living in a senior community and she was trying to find a place a little bit less expensive, and she ended up hiring a moving company and an organizer, and it was just a really challenging time because when she was released from her nursing home, the move was going on and she's been in transit and she's had to stay at a hotel, and you really feel for this woman because she's not technically medically diagnosed with any sort of cognitive impairment. She can make decisions on her own. It's just the challenge with this person is she's not helping helping other providers help her. She's not helping her help herself, basically. I've introduced to her my company, many other providers and resources, but in this particular situation, she just won't, take the steps necessary to get the help that she needs. And we really feel for her because she is afraid and worried of spending money on additional resources because she knows she needs to save it. But she's in a tricky spot because at the same time, she needs to spend a little bit of money to kind of get her feet off the ground and get her settled into a new home. But so she's in a tough spot and she's not getting help from the proper contacts. And through this, we've been wondering, is this person capable of being on their own? And they're already vulnerable, and we know that they have disabilities from a physical standpoint, but then we're thinking about the mental side. And are these disabilities affecting her so much to where she's just unable to help herself? And we were actually about to refer her to the APS, but another contact of ours, another provider, actually had made the report just before we were. So the APS actually has gotten involved in our local community, and they've reached out to her, and they've already met with her a couple of times. And actually the same person on this case is the same person we worked with on the last case, the one I just mentioned. And I've been in touch with this woman. We've talked a couple of times, particularly about this client. And going back to our quote, which says government's first duty is to protect the people, which is what we addressed in the first example, is really to protect, but at the same time not run their lives. And in this case, the APS has been in touch with this woman, and they, just like we have and a few other folks have, they've told her how they can help her. But because she is mentally coherent and is not medically diagnosed as incompetent or incapable of helping herself, the APS can't really do much more. They've met with her. They said, look, we can help you do this, this, and this. We can help you with all these areas, but you have to engage us and you have to take our advice and try to get this help on your own. And unfortunately, this woman is still neglecting to help herself. And those are just two really good examples of of the APS and their as social workers and their role in helping protect people and being a resource. But at the same time, until someone is just totally medically is diagnosed as totally incapable of managing their own health and their own lives, at that point, then they would go to probate court to be assigned a guardian and a conservator. But until that happens, they're on their own, and they ultimately make their own decisions. But so in the end, this video is about the Adult Protective Services and really what they are, what they do, social services group. If there's ever any abuse in your community, we covered the different types of abuse. Really, the Adult Protective Services would be pretty much the first number you want to call. So call find out the number for your, you could have a statewide number, and then you could possibly even have a number within your community, your county, your town, wherever you live. I highly encourage you to get that information, have it handy, and you can report anonymously. And just to remember that the Adult Protective Services it's not an enforcement agency. They're not going to really go and arrest people per se, but they are there to investigate and to protect these people and to document the case. And if they find something going wrong, they're going to report it to the proper authorities, whether that's the police, the sheriff, the GBI, the FBI, whoever that is, so they can go on and then, if necessary, arrest the potential abusers. And APS is there to protect and help these people. In most states, it's going to be people that are aging 60 and older, and then also people that are 18 and older with disabilities. So if you found this video helpful or interesting, please feel free to share it with your social media channels. This could be your family, your friends, loved ones, or whoever you think might benefit from viewing this information. If you ever have a question for me personally, you can go to our website, www.bakerdmm.com. Scroll to the bottom and you can fill out the form and submit your question. And we'll review those and try to answer one of those in one of our upcoming newsletters. And if you'd ever like to get my help personally, you can go to the same website At the top, you'll find our phone number as well as a request an appointment button. And if you scroll at the bottom, there's a PayPal button where you can book an immediate and pay for an immediate appointment. And with any of those options, we'll be in touch with you to 24 to 48 hours to schedule our meeting. And until then, I will talk to you all soon.